There comes a quiet moment in life when the noise of the world begins to feel heavier than your own heartbeat. Voices everywhere telling you who to be, how to move, when to speak, when to shrink. And somewhere in all that chaos, you start losing the sound of yourself. You start explaining your dreams to people who were never meant to understand them. You start announcing your next move before you've even taken the first step. And slowly, without even noticing, your power begins to leak. Not because you're weak, but because you are exposed. Now listen closely, because what I'm about to say might change the way you move forever. Not everyone needs to know your plans. Not everyone deserves access to your becoming. And the more you talk, the more you give others a chance to doubt, to question, to plant seeds of fear in a garden you haven't even finished growing yet. But what happens, what truly happens, when you stop explaining, stop announcing, and start building in silence? There is a different kind of strength that grows when you turn inward. It does not shout. It does not beg for validation. It stands firm, like roots buried deep beneath the soil, unseen but unshakable. When you focus on yourself, you begin to reclaim your energy from places it never belonged. You stop chasing approval and start creating alignment. You stop performing for the world and start becoming for your soul. People will misunderstand your silence. Let them. They will think you've fallen off. Let them. They will whisper about your absence as if your quiet means weakness. But what they don't see is that while they are talking, you are transforming. While they are watching others, you are watching yourself. And that is where the real work happens. Because growth is not loud. Evolution does not need an audience. The most powerful shifts in your life will happen behind closed doors, in early mornings when no one is clapping, in late nights when no one is checking on you, in moments where the only voice guiding you, is your own. And yes, it will feel lonely sometimes. You will reach for your phone, tempted to share your progress, your ideas, your next step. But pause. Ask yourself, is this for growth or is this for validation? Because every time you announce before you achieve, you give away a piece of your discipline. You satisfy your ego before your purpose is fulfilled. And then when things get hard, when the excitement fades, you are left carrying not only your own doubt, but the expectations of everyone you told. Silence protects your vision. It shields your focus from distraction, from negativity, from the opinions of people who have never walked your path. When you move quietly, you move with intention. When you move quietly, you hear yourself more clearly. And when you hear yourself clearly, you make decisions that align with who you are becoming, not who the world expects you to be. There is power in being underestimated. There is power in walking into a room where no one knows your next move. Because when you finally reveal your results, when your work speaks louder than your words ever could, it lands differently. It hits deeper. It commands respect without asking for it. Focus on yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a sacred way. Protect your energy like it is your lifeline, because it is. Protect your time like it is your currency, because it is. Every hour you spend comparing, explaining, or seeking approval is an hour stolen from your own becoming. And understand this, the world does not reward those who talk the most. It rewards those who stay consistent when no one is watching. It rewards those who keep going when the excitement is gone. It rewards those who build quietly and show up powerfully. So let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them misunderstand your silence. Because while they are busy trying to figure you out, you will be busy building a life they cannot interrupt. And one day, you won't have to say a word. Your presence will speak. Your results will echo. And your silence will tell the whole story. There is a quiet kind of discipline that most people will never understand because it doesn't announce itself, it doesn't perform, it doesn't beg to be seen. It lives in the decision to focus on yourself when everything around you is trying to pull your attention outward. And the truth is, the moment you decide to truly focus on yourself, your life begins to change in ways that feel almost uncomfortable at first, because you are no longer distracted by the noise. You are confronted with your own thoughts, your own habits, your own truths that you can no longer run from. Focusing on yourself is not just about ignoring others. It is about reclaiming ownership over your time, your energy, and your direction. It is about waking up and choosing growth over comfort, even when no one is watching, even when there is no applause waiting for you at the end of the day. Most people are addicted to distraction. They scroll endlessly, compare constantly, talk unnecessarily, and wonder why they feel stuck. But when you begin to focus on yourself, you start cutting off those invisible chains one by one. You begin to notice how much of your life was spent reacting instead of creating, reacting to opinions, reacting to criticism, reacting to expectations that were never truly yours. And in that awareness, something powerful happens. You stop asking for permission to become who you were meant to be. You stop waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect support system, the perfect conditions. You realize that everything you need to start building your life is already within you, but it requires your full attention. And attention is expensive. Wherever your attention goes, your life follows. If your attention is scattered across other people's lives, other people's validation, other people's approval, then your life will feel fragmented, incomplete, always chasing something just out of reach. But when you bring that attention back to yourself, when you invest it into your growth, your skills, your mindset, your healing, you start to feel a shift that cannot be faked. You start becoming more aware of your patterns. The excuses you used to make begin to sound hollow. The habits that once felt normal begin to feel heavy. You start asking yourself harder questions, questions that demand honest answers. Why am I still here? What am I avoiding? What am I capable of if I truly committed? And those questions, they don't always feel comfortable, but they are necessary, because growth does not come from comfort. It comes from confrontation with the truth. Focusing on yourself also means learning how to sit with your own company without feeling the need to escape it. That is a skill many people never develop. They are constantly surrounded by noise because silence makes them uneasy. Silence forces reflection, and reflection reveals what needs to change. But when you learn to be alone without feeling lonely, when you learn to enjoy your own presence, you unlock a level of confidence that cannot be taken away from you. Because now you are no longer dependent on others to feel complete. You are no longer seeking constant validation to remind yourself of your worth. You know who you are, and more importantly, you know who you are becoming. And that clarity, it sharpens your decisions. You become more intentional with your time. You say no without guilt. You walk away from things that no longer align with your growth, even when it's difficult. And yes, people will notice the change. They will feel your distance, your silence, your shift in priorities. Some will question it. Some will misunderstand it. And some will even feel threatened by it. Because your focus on yourself reminds them of the areas in their own lives they are avoiding. But you cannot let that pull you back into old patterns. You cannot shrink yourself just to make others comfortable with your growth. Focusing on yourself requires a certain level of courage. The courage to disappoint others, the courage to be misunderstood, the courage to walk a path that not everyone will support. But in that courage you find freedom. Freedom from expectations, freedom from comparison, freedom from the constant need to prove yourself to people who were never truly invested in your journey. You begin to understand that your life is not a performance. It is a process. And that process requires consistency more than it requires attention. It requires showing up on the days you don't feel motivated. It requires doing the work even when the results are not immediate. It requires trusting the journey even when you cannot see the full picture yet. And slowly, piece by piece, you start building something real. Not something for show, not something for approval, but something that is deeply rooted in who you are. Your confidence becomes quieter but stronger. Your goals become clearer but more protected. Your energy becomes more focused but less available to things that drain you. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop feeling the need to justify your choices. You understand that not everyone is meant to understand your journey. And that is perfectly okay. Because your responsibility is not to be understood by everyone. Your responsibility is to stay true to yourself. And in that truth you find a different kind of power. A power that does not need validation. A power that does not seek attention. A power that simply exists because you have done the work, because you have stayed committed, because you have chosen yourself over and over again. Even when it was difficult, even when it was uncomfortable, even when no one else could see the progress you were making. And that is where everything begins to change, not all at once, not in a loud or dramatic way, but in a steady, undeniable shift that transforms the way you think, the way you move, and the way you live your life every single day, until one day you look back and realize that the person you used to be is no longer someone you recognize, and the life you are living is no longer something you have to explain to anyone because it speaks for itself. Silence is not emptiness, it is preparation. It's a space where clarity is formed, where strength is built, where intention becomes action without interruption. And yet in a world that constantly pushes you to speak, to share, to prove, choosing silence feels almost unnatural. You are taught that if you are not talking, you are not progressing. If you are not showing, you are not succeeding. But that belief has misled so many into living loud lives with little depth. When you choose to stay silent, you are not disappearing, you are refining. You are removing the unnecessary noise so you can finally hear what matters. Because the truth is, every time you speak too soon about your plans, you invite opinions that were never meant to guide you. You open doors to doubt before your idea has even had a chance to breathe. And those doubts, they linger. They sit quietly in your mind, shaping your decisions in ways you don't even realize. There is a fragile stage in every goal, every dream, every transformation, a stage where it needs protection more than exposure. Think of it like a seed beneath the soil. It does not break through the ground the moment it is planted. It stays hidden, growing roots, building strength in silence. If you keep digging it up to show people that it exists, you interrupt its growth, you weaken its foundation, and eventually you begin to wonder why nothing is flourishing. Your silence is that soil. It protects what you are building from the harsh conditions of outside opinions. Because not everyone who listens to you wants to see you win. Some people will disguise their doubt as advice. Some will project their fears onto your vision. And if you are constantly speaking, constantly sharing, you make yourself vulnerable to absorbing that energy before you are strong enough to reject it. Staying silent also strengthens your discipline because it forces you to find satisfaction in progress rather than recognition. It teaches you to keep going without needing anyone to notice, and that is where real consistency is born. When you are no longer fueled by applause, you begin to operate from purpose. You do the work because it matters to you, not because it will impress someone else. There is something deeply powerful about being in a room where no one knows your next move. No one is watching you with expectations. No one is waiting to judge your outcome. You are free to fail quietly, to learn privately, to grow without pressure. And in that freedom, You become more creative, more resilient, more focused, because your energy is no longer split between doing the work and explaining the work. And let's be honest, sometimes we talk because it feels easier than doing. Talking creates the illusion of progress. It gives you a temporary sense of accomplishment without requiring real effort. You tell people your plans, they react with excitement, they praise your ambition, and for a moment it feels like you've already achieved something. But then reality sets in. The work still needs to be done. The discipline is still required. And now you are carrying the weight of expectations that you created through words instead of actions. Silence removes that illusion. It keeps you grounded in reality. It reminds you that nothing counts until the work is complete. And that reminder, as uncomfortable as it may be, keeps you aligned with your goals. There is also a level of emotional control that comes with staying silent. You learn to process your thoughts internally instead of reacting immediately. You become more observant, more aware of your surroundings, more in tune with the intentions of others. You start noticing patterns, not just in people, but in yourself. And that awareness allows you to move smarter, not just harder. You begin to understand that not every thought needs to be spoken, not every plan needs to be shared, not every emotion needs to be expressed in the moment it is felt. There is strength in restraint, there is wisdom in observation, and there is power in choosing when to speak and when to remain silent. And yes, there will be moments when silence feels heavy, moments when you want to be seen, when you want to be acknowledged, when you want someone to recognize the effort you are putting in. That desire is human, but you must learn to sit with it without letting it control you. Because the moment you start chasing recognition, you shift your focus away from growth. Staying silent is not about suppressing yourself. It is about prioritizing yourself. It is about understanding that your journey does not need constant validation to be real. It is about trusting that the work you are doing, even if no one sees it right now, will eventually speak louder than anything you could ever say. And when that moment comes, when your results begin to show, when your growth becomes visible, when your life starts reflecting the effort you put in behind the scenes, it carries a different weight, because it is undeniable. It is not based on words, it is based on proof. People will look at you and wonder how you did it. They will try to trace your steps, to understand your process, to figure out when the change happened. But what they will not see are the silent days, the quiet nights, the moments of doubt you overcame without announcing them, the discipline you built without showcasing it. And that is your advantage, because while others were busy speaking, seeking, and showing, you were building, refining, and becoming. And by the time the world hears your story, you are already living it in a way that no explanation could ever fully capture, because the loudest thing about you will not be your words, but the undeniable presence of someone who chose silence long enough to become something powerful without ever needing to announce it first.